Good evening. My name is Gean Moreno. I'm going to moderate this book launch of Los Carpinteros' new book. The book is Handwork, Constructing the World, and it's put out by Zyman por Misa Foundation in Vienna. I'm going to do a quick introduction, then Daniela will speak a little bit, and then Los Carpinteros will fill in it.
Can you hear?
So Los Carpinteros are Marco Antonio Castillo Valdés, born in Cuba in 1971, and Dagoberto Rodríguez Sánchez, born in Cuba in 1969. And an original member until 2003 was Alexandria Rechea, who was born in Cuba in 1970. Los Carpinteros live and work in Havana. They've participated in numerous international shows, including sites at the Whitney Museum, the new decor at the Hayward. Their work is in collections at MoMA, at the Guggenheim, and Museo de Bellas Artes in Havana, and Centro de Arte Reina Sofía in Madrid, and many other places. They've shown international biennials in Havana in 2000 and 2006, in Venice in 2005, and in Shanghai in 2002. So I'm going to hand it to Daniela. Daniela can maybe introduce the book, and we can then talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Gean. Well, this monograph that you can see here in front of my legs, but also on the sales table of the AP, has actually started about 2 years ago when Marco and Dago came to the foundation and said, well, we really need a new publication that kind of gives an overview of our production since 2003. 2003, in a way, can be considered as sort of a maturation period of Los Carpinteros. I think a lot of the ideas, a lot of the motifs of their work came together at that time, and certain lines and conceptual lines became clearer and clearer. So what we try to do is, on one hand, to assemble as much of the works as possible that were created in the last 7 or 8 years, but then also structure the works, not according to media. Most of the works that have been produced and that you will find in the book were watercolors. Others were public installations, public works, but then some of them are also sculptural works. So we didn't actually want to categorize the work by media, but to basically try to follow the sort of lines of creation, if you want, the conceptual lines of what this kind of Los Carpinteros universe consisted of. So what you will see in the publication are 8 chapters with very different topics. Some are formal categories. One topic we have called morphing, which is this idea of transformation of one object into something else. Another chapter is dedicated to, for instance, water. Water is an incredibly important topic that comes in works such as the pools that those Carpinteros did over the years, many works concerning pools, waters, but also lately objects like the flip-flops just seen here at the fair a few days ago. So these main chapters are the divides in which the different media sort of come together, and the way we actually really gathered the different works were more sort of by association rather than by clear definitions. In between the different chapters, we have photo albums, and these photo albums are actually reference pictures, many of them taken by the Carpinteros, by Dago and Marco in Havana. Just simple construction sites, pools, as I mentioned, object of daily lives, sketchbooks they have, just to sort of reference the work back to actually the city of Havana. And this would actually be my first question to Dago, Marco, whoever wants to pick it up. How do you see the relationship between, for instance, the pools, for instance, a work such as the many drawings, the many watercolors you did about pools, and then what I would call the reality of Havana, the context in which you've been living and working for the past 15 years?
Yes, the series of the swimming pools, I think we first have to explain because we don't have image, we have to kind of describe the pieces. We made this series of small swimming pools that look like real pools, but they have only like 2 meters, like 6 feet long. And this swimming pool has a very accurate reproduction of original pools, but with these certain alterations to these little pools, like this one here, that look like an aircraft carrier, and and we made this frozen Olympic pool that you can see later in the book, and many others. Many other variations about the idea of the pool, but the main motif of these pools came out from what means for us pools in our environment in Cuba. Pools are a very strange object that have become over the years almost in a taboo. First of all, it's hard to. It's barely impossible to build a swimming pool in Cuba. It's absolutely illegal to make a swimming pool. So basically, the only pools we have is the pools that it's been left by the old bourgeoisie in Cuba. That many of them probably came here or other parts of the country, and probably in the early 60s, all these people live and left the house, many houses empty, and new people have to leave these houses. So people from probably other social class, more like workers or simple people, and they have to give new uses to this new life, no? And not always the swimming pool have been used as swimming pools. Sometimes they use the swimming pool to grow, probably to grow animal, or they just remain empty, or they build houses inside the swimming pools. So the swimming pool start getting a very strange uses. So that was completely an inspiration for this series. And we always work like that in all different series.
So the starting point is something that you see in the city, that you see in Havana, and then there are these constant transformations, these processes of layering, transforming, and maybe linguistically, as we've said earlier, kind of switching and turning it around. Another motif is bricks. I mean, you work a lot with bricks and mortar. This is a very fundamental element in your work. Maybe you want to talk about bricks and how that kind of makes a sort of chapter in your work as well.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about the pool because not only they are more than political aspects. The pool are a great opportunity to conform a language based on water, no, on the dialogue. For example, this one is they have 2 floating houses inside, so it's the idea of the bumping neighbors inside the pool, no? So all this fantasy about pleasure, about comfort, about things that we don't have are also conform in that project, no? Mm.
But the bricks, basically, I mean, I'm mentioning the bricks because it then relates to houses, right? Bricks are sort of the elementary structure of the housing process, of creating housing. And I think urban structures are something very important in your works. I mean, starting with something more abstract like transportable city, but then it comes, it's a very important aspect in your work. Where do people live? How is housing actually defined in an artistic, in an aesthetic way rather than in a functional definition?
We are coming from a place that we have to fabricate almost everything. So our creation is a kind of response to this kind of living. No, we have to. It's a life. It's invented life in most of the aspect. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a social context too that maybe we should fill in a little bit. So we see after the fall of the Eastern Bloc and the end of subsidies to Cuba, there's a new use of the city. And we see Havana population increasing and zero investment in housing infrastructure. So everything in the city, all the structures have to be rethought somehow and reused. So I think I think that's a significant social context that maybe you guys can speak to.
So it's a period of great scarcity. Everything is extremely reduced. Resources are very limited. Everything has to be made to new purpose and made into a new use in real life, but also in a way, Los Carpinteros.
I think it's not only about construction, it's also construction of bricks and buildings. It's also, it's been always in our work, even before when we use more the furnitures and even wooden stuff, more traditional element of the houses, and I think it's related to probably to the there is a really, we grew up with a really a lack of material ingredients in our life, and I think this obsession of creating object to use, object to probably to supply certain necessities that might be in a certain point in our life was our own necessity, had created I lost the point. Had created a line of work that is completely focused on the providing ourselves a new world of objects that might be possible to use in certain point.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the carpenters, Los Carpinteros. Where did this name come from? Why? And are you still carpenters, or are you different carpenters, or are you subversive carpenters?
It was not our idea to choose the name. It was I think the appearance of the first pieces that we used to make. We used to make like a kind of furniture, so the people start calling us Los Carpinteros, but it was not our choice. At the end we decided to, okay, this is our name, because it was a kind of complot also.
But the first series of works were more related to furniture-type pieces, where carpentry, craftsmanship, this idea of a guild, was very strongly represented in a way.
Yeah, when we were students, the first thing that we have in hands was the fantastic houses from the people who left Cuba in the 60s. So. We recycle all the furniture inside the houses to build our first pieces. So,
I think
it's a recycling history.
At the moment we create our team, there was a very interesting period in Havana. In this moment, this generation generate artists like Tania Bruguera, that is here tonight. Carlos Garaycoa, Fernando Rodríguez, Ibrahim Miranda, and it's a number of artists. It's a very interesting generation because we almost got an empty country, I mean, culturally talking. When we started developing our work, there was a huge immigration of artists, and in the early 90s, exactly when we created our team and generation. And we all have to invent a new way of talking to the audience in Cuba and to the institution, because it was really a tough confrontation between the artists and an institution. There was a tough censorship and really also tough reaction of the artists. And that was one side of the situation. And the other side was many artists were doing an art extremely folkloric and probably more related to religion or decorativism, and so we decided to create Los Carpinteros to focus in the idea of the guild, the idea of the collaboration, the idea of how to produce an object, how to take care of the process of the construction of an object, and this focus gave us really life, and a space to work. And suddenly, probably, I think the institutions really got confused with us, and they look at us more like labor people, carpenters, or things like that, instead of a really dangerous intellectual.
Well, I think the idea of the carpenter is really interesting in the sense that it sounds like a popular craft and like a lowly endeavor, but it actually implies, milling implies a series of woods. You know, it's the opposite of scarcity. You know, it's the opposite of scarcity. When you have carpenters, it's because there's a series of woods that they can select from, and there's a series of knowledges of how wood works. You know, oak cuts differently than cedar.
Oh yes,
And
yes.
so it's the opposite of scarcity. It's not, you're not just picking whatever wood and building it. It implies this long knowledge. And that's just a segue into asking you about irony, which seems to be one of the lines that your generation that you're speaking about seemed to go with. While the generation previous to you was very confrontational, your generation, at least a part of it, has turned toward irony and this kind of more slippery language when they're engaging institutions or the public in general.
We had to elaborate a lot. We had to elaborate the way we do the speech, the artistic speech, and we have to elaborate the, how do you say, el disfraz, ¿cómo se dice?
The costume.
We have to elaborate a lot the costume, and that happened in many of our, compañeros of our generation.
Mm.
I remember Tania, she used to do her work through other artists, like Ana Mendieta, and that was also some sort of,
a camouflage,
custom,
also.
camouflage.
A subversion, a camouflage, kind of a détournement.
Yeah. But it was very natural. It was not an artificial attitude. It really came out with the situation. You know, we have to solve the problem.
Mm. Well, we have spoken a little bit about watercolors. So, you have produced very many watercolors in the past decades. Do you produce them together, individually? How does the work of the collective work on a sort of very simple way of production?
The watercolor is the base of our work. I think this book is basically a watercolor book. And it's because...
And the next one will be a sculpture or a building book.
I promise you. No, the point is that the 90% of the work that we have been made is not fabricated yet. It's not built. And this is the way that we communicate each other.
Blueprints for you. They're the blueprints for a production which is then sculptural or building.
We consider like a bank of ideas. It's a bank that we, anytime we have to choose to make an sculpture, we go to this, no?
Mm.
It's a second step. I think in a collaboration team, it's very important, the conversation.
Yes.
Or everything come out of our conversation. And the second step is the drawings, probably. The drawing is the way we talk each other after our main conversation. And I remember we used to say that these drawings are like letters that we send each other, no? Especially when we were 3. And at the beginning, it really had a very technical objective. It was really to project the future of sculpture. But with the year, it has become really in our language. And as Dago said, finally becoming in our bank of ideas. It's really la fuente, the source of everything we deal with at this very moment, and also it's becoming in a representation of a reality that probably will never happen. There are many works there that will never become sculpture. So they are paintings of a fantasy, of a conceptual situation at a certain point.
Mm-hmm. It's like a diary also.
Like a diary.
Yeah, because it's you can see drawings that have been made in not only in Cuba. You see drawings that we have been made in everywhere. So they're like kind of a portrait that what we happening at the moment that we made it. Mm-hmm.
But one of the projects you have realized, which is a wonderful watercolor and a wonderful project in the Indianapolis Museum, a public park, Maybe a project that actually just opened very recently. Perhaps you can talk about that. It is really fantastic and worth the visit to Indianapolis.
This is our more ambitious piece of culture that we have ever made. And the idea is to describe with the tubes the bouncing of not the ball, I mean the arches itself, no? And how these opposite are at some point they are coming together, no? They are becoming the same thing, no? So it's a very simple idea, no?
The piece is just almost the perpetuation of a strategy action. So it's all the bouncing that might happen in a basketball game is perpetuated with these huge tubes, which are at the same time the same material to build the basket base, no? The original basket base, and this gesture was we already touched that in this other piece called Stories.
It's not the film Inception. I mean, everybody who's seen that.
And yes, we have to describe it, otherwise it's hard to understand. It's like a blast that happened to a wall, and everything is hanging with fishing wires, and it's perfectly, ubicated, positioned. Every fragment until you actually see almost a real effect of an explosion. And then we did this for the Prague Biennale, and then Thyssen-Bornemisza got the piece. But then after that, we did for the Hayward Gallery in London a new version that has furniture.
IKEA.
It's like one of these IKEA a showroom, a whole set of an IKEA showroom under a blast, and everything is carefully hung. You have to say it. It's really hard to see that on the description. No?
But this Hollywood film, Inception, that's what I'm mentioning, where you go into these dream levels. Have you seen the film?
I want to see the movie. I didn't see it.
You have to see the movie because
but
they're
we made all this explosion we interpreted this. We never saw a picture of how things behave when they have an explosion. So we are creating our thinking how can be this, you know?
So actually we call it in the book, we call it the cold studies, because they're almost like frozen moments of explosions, a little bit like sort of slow motion, explosives where time stands still. And there's actually quite a series of drawings that come into this chapter of frozen moments, if you want. But some of them have been realized as sculptures, and they're incredibly effectful pieces where it's not just a matter of the illusion of the moment, because obviously you see how the piece is made, but still the incredible beauty of disintegration and reintegration, of unmaking something, or of making something that seems to be unmade, is of an enormous attraction, I would say. It's a great piece.
Also, I'm wondering if this new work and the public one, it seemed, I'm going back to this generational thing that you brought up, but it seemed that your generation returned to this self-determined autonomous object for a long time. Where you think of the generation previous, maybe Bray or someone like that had these big installations. It seems the generation of the 90s came back to the object. So I guess my question is this a move to something that is not so object-centered? And I guess it applies to the Indianapolis piece in the sense that it involves a public dimension and interaction. So the question is this, do you see this as a move away from this contained object?
I don't know. I don't know exactly, but I think it have a very it's another way to see the obsession by the object and the material aspect of our work, and it's just another way to see. Even it's another way to handle the craftsmanship. It's another way it's the way we craft the destruction. You know, even the destruction can be craft, can be a matter of contemplation, not only a matter of violence or
Suffering.
or suffering situation. No, we really took care of this as almost like we were doing a ceramic piece or a painting on oil on canvas or something like that.
Well, the last series of work I would like to speak about very briefly are the sandals, the flip-flops, for the just very obvious reasons that you were generous enough to produce flip-flops as a special edition to our publication, and you can see the flip-flops back there. This is a first prototype. But there are a few others that were done in the past, and some of them are here in the book as sculptural objects and then as drawings again. All the flip-flops have different maps and urban structures. So how do you relate sandals, flip-flops, urban structures? I mean, how does that series kind of come about?
We wanted to make a sandal that can make a massage on your feet by using the city as a ¿cómo tú dices? Relieve, ¿no?
A relief.
Uh-huh. And then we get complicated a little bit more the idea, and we were focusing in the places that don't have a map in Cuba, the neighborhood that they even don't have a picture, a clear picture, no? Like I don't know, very poor neighborhoods, no? And that was the
so some of the neighborhoods are very poor neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They're sort of the barrios, the slum.
The marginal zone. One of them is El Fanguito, which is around the Rio Almendares, and it has a very spontaneous way to grow up. So it makes beautiful lines that we use this in the sandal.
But what happening at El Fanguito? I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's always changing the shape.
Also,
expanding or contracting, you know.
Yeah.
And we come from the idea that since these things can give you a massage, we think every city will give you a different effect on yourself.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm talking about when you visit a city, when you meet the people of the city, it will give you a different effect. And will also, the shape of the city will give you a different massage, different reaction to your body, no? And in this case, the one we got here is the city of Havana. And you can see the left foot is more comfortable and the right look a little bit uncomfortable probably. A little painful.
So that basically you can take out the flip-flops from the city map. They're wearable, you can put them on, but you can obviously just keep it in the bookshelf. Maybe a few more things about the book. We have one wonderful article by Helen Molesworth in the book where she talks about watercolors. There's the article by Paulo Herkenhoff. Maybe you want to speak a little bit about that, because it's quite interesting how Paulo kind of contextualizes the work of Los Carpinteros in the context of Latin American art.
Yeah, well, Dago was saying before that he was interested in the way that Latin America was being treated as a world unto itself.
Yeah, it does it in the text of Paulo Herkenhoff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he did a beautiful text in the book that really places our work in the context of Latin American art, which today is a really very sophisticated world, the contemporary art of Latin American art. He didn't need to go to Duchamp or probably some, probably a little bit, no, but to other artists. He just used the body of a Latin American. He took a lot to Sildo Meireles and even Jorge Pardo, and he mentioned a lot of, concepts of Latin American art, and we like this a lot, no?
Yeah. But there's also one text by Rochelle Steiner where Rochelle speaks about language. And maybe just to wrap up this little introduction to the world of Los Carpinteros, language actually plays a very important role. which was also difficulty for us as editors, as we don't speak Cuban and don't speak Spanish. A lot of the work have very funny context, right? A lot of, not just the work physically in this way of transforming objects, reworking objects, recontextualizing the objects, but just the titles. And they sometimes have puns and undercurrents and different sort of misunderstandings that they carry.
Helen said something about the time that we make the drawings. She said that they are timeless because they don't have anything that remind you present time. So they are like made at the indeterminate time.
Yeah, yeah. But language, more about this, the naming of objects. You know, you actually give very specific titles to the works, to the watercolors. I mean, how does that come about?
I think this book having becoming a dictionary of words. We had took so many objects, even little things, that we had to apply a name. We had to apply a name that at the end have become a new dictionary of words, no? That we use. We had to create. We almost never do untitled work. We always give a name to the work, and it's never the same name. So this is basically a new dictionary of our world of ideas.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Dago. Thank you, Marco. Thank you very much for working on this book.
I think we have to excuse our English. We are
it's
really
terrible.
terrible about, you know.
And Dago and Marco are happy to sign books if you wish. As I said, the books are here. We're very lucky that they got in on time, and we're very, very proud that it came out to be a very beautiful publication. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gean.
Muchas gracias. Dime, no te entendía.